Imagine this: a simple trash can, a paper towel, and just 5 minutes of your time. 10 days later, you could be harvesting fresh greens packed with up to 40 times more nutrients than anything currently in your refrigerator. This isn't science fiction. NASA is growing them on the International Space Station right now. Johns Hopkins University discovered they contain compounds that may cut cancer risk in half, and restaurants charge upwards of $110 per kilogram for them. Yet, you can cultivate an unlimited supply at home for the mere cost of a seed packet. Why, then, does almost no one do this? The answer lies in two key factors: a deeply ingrained cultural misconception about what farming truly entails, and an industry that thrives on the belief that fresh, healthy food demands vast land, specific seasons, and complex supply chains. By the end of this video, I will reveal the exact 5-minute setup that transforms any container into a potent nutrient factory. But first, you need to grasp the incredible power hidden within these tiny leaves and understand why it took the United States government over a decade to bring this information to light. If you've ever found yourself in a grocery store, gazing at wilted greens shipped thousands of kilometers, longing for a better alternative, prepare to uncover a secret that will fundamentally reshape your understanding of food. There's a category of plants so nutritionally dense, so absurdly easy to grow, and so fast to harvest that it makes everything else in modern agriculture seem like a bad joke. They are called microgreens. The journey of how they evolved from a chef's secret garnish to a NASA research priority, and then to one of the most underutilized home-growing methods in the Western world, is one of the strangest food stories you've likely never heard. This is where the story truly begins to get fascinating. In 1982, inside a bustling kitchen at one of San Francisco's most celebrated restaurants, a chef made a mistake that would subtly reshape how the world perceives vegetables. Craig Hartman, working at the legendary Cliff House overlooking the Pacific Ocean, had requested baby greens from his local grower, small, tender leaves intended for garnishing plates in one of the city's finest dining rooms. However, a miscommunication occurred. What arrived were not baby greens, but seedlings, tiny plants, barely 5 centimeters tall, each a miniature version of the full-grown vegetable it would have become. Their stems were as thin as thread, and their leaves were smaller than a thumbnail. Most chefs would have promptly sent them back. Hartman, instead, tasted one. The flavor struck him with an unexpected intensity. It was concentrated, potent. A single micro-radish leaf delivered more peppery bite than an entire mature radish. A tiny basil seedling carried a richer aroma than a full sprig of the adult plant. It was as if the essence of the full-grown vegetable had been compressed into something the size of a fingernail. Hartman immediately understood this was not a mistake. It was a profound discovery. Within weeks, these miniature greens adorned every plate leaving his kitchen. Diners noticed. They couldn't quite pinpoint what was different, but something on those plates tasted more vibrant, more alive than anything they had experienced before. Word spread through the San Francisco restaurant scene like a quiet wildfire. By the mid-1980s, chefs across California were requesting these mysterious little plants. Alice Waters at Pennies in Berkeley, the woman largely credited with inventing the farm-to-table movement in America, began experimenting with them. Nobody had a proper name yet. They simply called them microgreens. Southern California growers initiated commercial production in the mid-1990s. Initially, only a handful of varieties existed: arugula, basil, beets, kale, cilantro, and a colorful blend called Rainbow Mix. They were beautiful, chefs adored them, and diners willingly paid premium prices, often without knowing why. But here's the crucial point. For the first 2 decades of their existence, everyone assumed microgreens were purely decorative, a pretty garnish, a splash of color on an expensive plate. Nobody thought to ask the obvious question: what precisely is inside these tiny leaves? That question remained unanswered until 2012, when the United States Department of Agriculture decided to investigate. What they uncovered should have been front-page news in any rational world. Zhenli Xiao and Jean Lester, researchers at the University of Maryland and the USDA Agricultural Research Service, designed an experiment that, in hindsight, seems almost comically simple. They purchased 25 commercially grown microgreen varieties, including red cabbage, cilantro, amaranth, green daikon radish, celery, arugula, and 24 others. They then meticulously measured the concentrations of vitamins and antioxidants within these tiny seedlings and compared them to existing data for their mature counterparts in the USDA National Nutrient Database. The results, published in the Times Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry Times in August 2012, should have revolutionized everything. Microgreen cotyledon leaves, those first tiny leaves that emerge when a seed sprouts, possess dramatically higher nutritional densities than mature leaves from the same plant species. We're not talking slightly higher, or even modestly higher. The range was an astounding 4 to 40 times more concentrated. Let me reiterate that because it sounds almost unbelievable. A 5 centimeter tall seedling of red cabbage harvested just 10 days after planting contained 40 times more vitamin E than a full head of mature red cabbage. The same tiny red cabbage microgreen had 6 times the vitamin C of its adult counterpart, and an astonishing 69 times more vitamin K. Cilantro microgreens exhibited the highest concentration of carotenoids, the antioxidants vital for eye protection and fighting cellular damage. Green daikon radish microgreens boasted the highest vitamin E levels among all tested varieties. Garnet amaranth microgreens topped the charts for vitamin K. 4 of the 25 varieties tested had vitamin K levels comparable to mature spinach, which most people consider the gold standard for that nutrient. Furthermore, 18 out of 25 varieties had vitamin K densities equal to or higher than broccoli. And this was no fringe study from an unknown lab. This was the United States Department of Agriculture, and a major research university publishing in one of the most respected food science journals on Earth. The researchers themselves appeared surprised by their findings. Zhenli Xiao, the graduate student who tasted every single one of the 25 varieties during the study, later told the University of Maryland that most of them were remarkably flavorful. She recommended adding them to sandwiches, soups, and salads, noting they are really good food enhancers. But here's a detail that often goes unmentioned. The researchers also observed that golden pea tendrils, grown in complete darkness, had significantly lower vitamin and carotenoid concentrations. Conversely, plants grown with light exposure had dramatically higher nutrient levels. Light was the trigger. It activated something within the seedling that darkness could not. This means that the simple act of moving your tray from darkness into light, which takes a mere 3 seconds, is the switch that transforms an ordinary seedling into a nutritional powerhouse. 3 seconds of your time for up to 40 times the vitamins. Now, this is where it gets truly peculiar. That groundbreaking study was published in 2012. It made a brief splash on NPR and Times the Huffington Post, then essentially vanished from public conversation. No major food company reformulated products. No government nutrition program recommended microgreens. No school lunch initiative incorporated them. The most significant nutritional discovery of the decade landed with a whisper instead of a roar. But the research did not cease. It accelerated, and the next discovery was even more monumental. At Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, A pharmacologist named Paul Talalay had been pursuing an unusual line of inquiry since the late 1980s. While most cancer researchers focused on treating tumors after they appeared, Talalay was obsessed with prevention. He reasoned that plants, over millions of years of evolution, had developed chemical compounds to protect themselves against DNA damage and disease. If he could isolate those compounds, perhaps humans could utilize them too. In 1991, Talalay dispatched a postdoctoral researcher named Yushang Zhang to Baltimore's Northeast Market with a $20 bill and instructions to bring back a variety of vegetables. Zhang returned with broccoli, among other things. When they analyzed it, they discovered unusually high levels of a compound called sulforaphane. This compound triggered the body's own phase 2 detoxification enzymes, the molecular machinery your cells employ to neutralize cancer-causing chemicals before they can damage DNA. This discovery made the front page of Times, the New York Times, Times in 1992, and Times Popular Mechanics Times listed it among the greatest scientific discoveries of the 20th century. But it was what happened next that holds profound significance for our story. In 1994, Talalay's colleague Jed Fahy, a plant physiologist who directed the Brassica Chemoprotection Laboratory at Hopkins, did something nobody had thought to try. He analyzed broccoli sprouts and microgreens instead of the mature plant. What he found still reverberates through cancer research today. 3-day-old broccoli sprouts consistently contain 20 to 50 times more sulforaphane than mature broccoli heads. 20 to 50 times more in a tiny seedling you could grow on your kitchen counter in a week. Fahy fed extracts of these sprouts to rats and then exposed them to a known carcinogen. The rats that received the sprout extracts developed fewer tumors. The tumors they did develop were smaller and took longer to appear. Later clinical trials in China demonstrated that sulforaphane from broccoli sprouts boosted the excretion of benzene, a known carcinogen from tobacco smoke, by up to 61%. The research expanded to explore applications in autism, schizophrenia, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, liver disease, and even protection against air pollution. As Talalay himself stated in a Johns Hopkins press release, broccoli sprouts and microgreens may offer a simple dietary means of chemically reducing cancer risk. A simple dietary means grown in your kitchen for pennies. But here is what should deeply concern you. That finding was published in 1997, nearly 3 decades ago. A team at one of the most prestigious medical institutions in the world discovered that a plant you can grow in a shoebox contains one of the most potent cancer-preventive compounds ever identified. And yet, walk into any American supermarket today and count how many people are buying broccoli microgreens. You will not need both hands. Instead, you will find aisles of processed food, supplements in plastic bottles, and produce that traveled an average of 2,400 kilometers to reach your cart, its nutrients degrading every hour in transit. The microgreens section, if it exists at all, is usually a tiny package with a premium price tag. How did this happen? The answer is not what you might expect. There is no shadowy conspiracy, no secret memo from the lettuce industry. The suppression is structural, economic, and cultural. And in some ways, that makes it even more insidious. Here is the first problem. Microgreens do not look like food to most people. We have been conditioned since childhood that agriculture means vast acres of farmland, towering stalks of corn, fields stretching to the horizon, a plant you harvest at 5 centimeters tall from a plastic tray in your closet simply does not fit that mental model. It doesn't photograph well for farm subsidies. It doesn't require the heavy equipment that agricultural companies sell. It doesn't need the fertilizer, pesticide, and herbicide products that represent hundreds of billions of dollars in annual revenue. Every dollar you spend growing microgreens at home is a dollar that does not enter the industrial food supply chain. Here is the second problem. Microgreens are too easy. They violate every assumption modern consumers have about food production requiring complexity. You cannot patent a radish seed. You cannot create a subscription model around a paper towel and tap water. You cannot build a billion-dollar logistics network to deliver something that grows faster than your Amazon package arrives. The simplicity itself is the threat. When the food you need costs pennies to produce and takes days instead of months, the entire economic model of industrial agriculture begins to appear absurd. Here's the third problem. Fresh microgreens are highly perishable. They typically last 5 to 10 days refrigerated. You cannot ship them globally like frozen beef or canned vegetables. The economic model of modern food depends on products that can be stored, transported, and sold weeks or months after production. A food that is best eaten the day you harvest it naturally favors the local grower over the large corporation. This is the same structural pattern we observe with mushrooms, with duckweed, with virtually every food that threatens to shorten the distance between producer and consumer. The system doesn't need to actively suppress it. The system simply ignores what it cannot profit from. And consumers never learn what they were never taught. Consider this math for a moment. The average American family spends roughly $300 per month on groceries. A significant portion of that goes to produce that was harvested days or weeks ago and has been losing nutrients every hour since. A single 25x 50 centimeter tray of microgreens costs about $2 in seeds and produces greens with more vitamins than a $20 bag of mixed salad from the store. 10 trays per month, costing $20 in seeds, can yield more concentrated nutrition than most families consume in an entire year. The economics are so dramatically lopsided that they feel like an error. But they are not an error. They are precisely the reason you were never taught this. When the math favors the consumer so profoundly, no corporation has an incentive to publicize it. But some people refuse to be ignored. While nutritional science was revealing what microgreens contained, something else was happening 400 kilometers above the Earth. On the 7th of May 2014, NASA installed a small plant growth chamber called Veggie on the International Space Station. It was roughly the size of a carry-on suitcase. The mission was straightforward. Figure out how to grow fresh food in space. Because on a mission to Mars, potentially lasting years, the vitamins in prepackaged food degrade, and astronauts require fresh nutrients that no freeze-dried meal can provide. In 2015, astronauts harvested and ate red romaine lettuce grown entirely in orbit. It was the first fresh food ever consumed in space that had not been brought from Earth. Astronaut Scott Kelly described it as a big leap toward Mars. Since then, the crew has successfully grown Chinese cabbage, Mizuna mustard, pak choi, radishes, and wasabi mustard, which they specifically cultivated as a microgreen, harvesting it after just 10 days. But the true breakthrough arrived when NASA's project scientist Joy Yamasa and her team turned their full attention to microgreens. Her statement was blunt. Microgreens have between 4 and 10 times the nutritional density of a mature plant. For space travel, where every gram of payload matters and every square centimeter of growing area is precious, microgreens offered more nutrition per unit of space and time than any other crop NASA had tested. Here is the part that directly connects back to your kitchen. The LED grow light technology that makes indoor microgreen farming possible was originally developed by NASA. In 1990, NASA funded research at the University of Wisconsin on using light-emitting diodes to grow plants. That research continued at the Kennedy Space Center through the 2000s. The LED grow lights that now illuminate warehouses and closets and garages of microgreen growers worldwide exist because NASA needed to grow food in a tin can orbiting Earth at 28,000 kilometers per hour. The technology was built for space. It works just as effectively in a trash can in your apartment. Think about that for a moment. The same engineering that sustains astronauts 400 kilometers above Earth is available at your local hardware store for $12. A technology designed to ensure human survival on a journey to Mars is sitting on a shelf between the duct tape and the extension cords. Nobody told you to buy it for growing food because nobody profits when you do. Now, I promised you the 5-minute setup. Here is exactly how to do it. I want you to understand something before I begin. What I'm about to describe will sound deceptively simple. You will likely think I am omitting steps. I am not. The reason this works is because the seed already contains everything the plant needs for its first stage of life. You are not growing a mature plant. You are not farming in the traditional sense. You are unlocking nutrition that is already stored inside the seed, much like a battery holds energy. All you are doing is adding water, a surface to land on, and a little bit of light. Here is what you need. First, any shallow container. A standard 25x 50 centimeter nursery tray is what commercial growers use, but anything works. A baking dish, a takeout container with holes poked in the bottom, a recycled plastic clamshell from the grocery store, even a trash can lid flipped upside down. A depth of 5 to 7. 5 centimeters is all you require. Second, a growing surface, and importantly, not soil. A hemp mat cut to fit your container is the cleanest option. You can order them online for about $1 per sheet. Coconut coir works beautifully. A folded paper towel works in a pinch. A piece of burlap. Even a thin layer of shredded cardboard. The medium merely needs to hold moisture and provide tiny roots something to grip. Third, seeds. This is where your money goes, and it's not much money at all. A single packet of broccoli microgreen seeds costs $3 to $5 and will fill multiple trays. Radish seeds are among the cheapest and fastest, ready in 7 days with a spicy, peppery crunch. Sunflower seeds produce hearty, nutty microgreens. Pea shoots yield sweet, tender greens that children genuinely love. Always buy seeds labeled for microgreen or sprouting use and ensure they have not been treated with fungicides. Fourth, water. Filtered tap water is perfectly fine. If your tap water is heavily chlorinated, let it sit in an open container overnight or add a drop of water conditioner from any pet store. Fifth, light. And here's the part that surprises everyone. Microgreens do not need sunlight. Any light source works. A cheap LED shop light from the hardware store, a desk lamp, a windowsill that receives indirect light. Even the ambient light in a bright room is sufficient for some varieties. Commercial growers utilize dedicated LED panels, but you do not need them to start. Here is the growing process. Soak your growing medium until it is thoroughly damp, but not dripping. Lay it flat in your container. Scatter your seeds densely across the surface. For most varieties, you want the seeds close together, almost touching. This is unlike planting a garden where you space things out. Density is your ally here. Mist the seeds with a spray bottle. Now, cover the tray. Use another tray flipped upside down, a piece of cardboard, or a dark towel. This is the blackout phase. For 3 to 5 days, the seeds germinate in darkness. This encourages the seedlings to stretch upward, searching for light, which gives you taller, more harvestable microgreens. Mist once or twice daily during this phase. After 3 to 5 days, uncover the tray. The seedlings will appear pale yellow. They haven't seen light yet. That is normal and precisely what you want. Now, expose them to your light source. Within 24 to 48 hours, something almost magical occurs. Those pale yellow seedlings transform into a vibrant green. The chlorophyll activates. Photosynthesis begins. You are quite literally watching life switch on. Continue misting or bottom watering for another 4 to 7 days. When the first set of tiny leaves, the cotyledons, have fully opened and look bright and healthy, your microgreens are ready. Grab a sharp pair of scissors and cut them just above the growing surface. Rinse gently and eat immediately, or store them in a container with a paper towel in your refrigerator for 5 to 10 days. Here is what will happen the first time you do this, and I mean this sincerely. You will feel like you cheated. You will gaze at a tray of vibrant green life that did not exist 10 days ago and feel as if you skipped something. There's no way food this beautiful, this alive, this nutrient-dense could have grown from a paper towel in your closet. But it did, and the taste will unequivocally confirm it. Fresh microgreens, eaten seconds after harvest, possess a crispness and intensity that nothing from a grocery store can match. It's the difference between a tomato from your garden and a tomato shipped across the country. Multiply that difference by 10. That is what fresh microgreens taste like. That is the entire process. Seed to harvest in 7 to 14 days. One tray produces 113 to 170 grams of microgreens. At grocery store prices of $55 to $110 per kilogram, you just grew $8 to $20 worth of food in a space, smaller than a laptop, with zero soil, minimal water, and a light source that costs pennies per day to operate. Now, scale this up in your mind. Imagine 4 trays stacked vertically on a simple wire shelf in a closet. With staggered planting, you start a new tray every 3 days. Within 2 weeks, you are harvesting continuously. Perpetual fresh microgreens, all from one shelf, one cheap light, and a few packets of seeds. That is all it takes. Here is a number that truly puts this into perspective. Commercial microgreen growers utilizing vertical rack systems in a space of just 6 square meters, roughly the size of a walk-in closet, can produce 7 kilograms of microgreens every 2-week cycle. At $44 per kilogram, that amounts to $1,000 worth of food every 2 weeks from a space most people use to store old coats. Some urban growers in Brooklyn, Portland, and Austin are running full-time microgreen businesses from spare bedrooms and garages, earning 6 figures per year. The profit margins on microgreens range from 40 to 60% on a home scale. Compare that to conventional farming, where margins often hover in the single digits. But forget the money for a moment. Think about what this means for your family. You are harvesting greens that are 4 to 40 times more nutrient-dense than anything in the produce aisle. Greens that were alive 5 seconds before they hit your plate. No pesticide residue, no 2-week supply chain, no nutrient degradation from cold storage and cross-country trucking. You control everything. And the varieties you can grow at home would make a gourmet chef envious. Broccoli, microgreens, packed with the cancer-fighting sulforaphane discovered in Johns Hopkins research. A single serving of broccoli microgreens can deliver more of this compound than eating 9 kilograms of mature broccoli in a week. Radish microgreens with a peppery bite that transforms any sandwich. They are also the fastest variety, ready to eat in as little as 7 days, meaning you can go from seed to dinner in less time than it takes most people to finish a Netflix series. Sunflower microgreens, with a nutty, satisfying crunch that children will eat by the handful. Pea shoot microgreens that taste like the sweetest, freshest snap pea you have ever had. These are so popular in Asian cuisine that street vendors in Southeast Asia sell bags of them the way Americans sell popcorn. Amaranth microgreens, with a stunning magenta color that makes any plate look like fine dining. Cilantro, basil, mustard, beet, kale, arugula. You can rotate through dozens of varieties, each with its own unique flavor and nutritional profile. all from the same simple setup. One more fascinating detail about varieties. A follow-up study from the USDA in 2016 tested red cabbage microgreens on mice fed a high-fat diet. The mice that consumed the microgreens showed dramatically lower cholesterol, reduced liver fat, and decreased inflammatory markers compared to mice eating mature red cabbage. The researchers found that microgreens contained more polyphenols and glucosinolates, the compounds responsible for these health benefits, than the fully grown vegetable. Same plant, same genetics, just harvested 10 days after planting instead of 3 months. The timing of the harvest was the variable that changed everything. The revival is already underway, and it's not just home growers. In Brooklyn, a company called Smallhold cultivates microgreens and mushrooms in shipping containers beneath the Williamsburg Bridge. In Portland and Detroit, urban farms are converting abandoned buildings into microgreen production facilities. In Japan, companies like Spread operate fully automated vertical farms producing tens of thousands of trays per day. In Singapore, where land scarcity makes traditional agriculture nearly impossible, rooftop and indoor microgreen farms directly supply restaurants and hospitals. The pandemic accelerated everything. When supply chains faltered in 2020 and grocery store shelves emptied, thousands of people searched for ways to grow food at home that didn't require a backyard or a growing season. Microgreens were the answer that was already waiting. Search interest in home microgreen growing exploded. Seed companies sold out of microgreen varieties for months. A generation of people who had never grown anything in their lives discovered they could produce fresh, nutrient-dense food in their apartments in less than 2 weeks. Online communities formed almost overnight. Reddit forums and Facebook groups dedicated to home microgreen growing swelled from a few hundred members to tens of thousands in weeks. People posted photos of their first harvests like proud parents showing baby pictures. The before and after transformations were astonishing. Day 1. A tray of dry seeds on a damp paper towel. Day 10. A lush carpet of green that looked like it belonged in a professional kitchen. Neighbors began trading varieties. Office workers set up trays under their desk lamps. Apartment dwellers in cities where the nearest farmland was hours away were suddenly producing food fresher than anything in any restaurant within driving distance. A retired teacher in Minneapolis documented growing 14 different varieties simultaneously on a single wire shelf in her laundry room. A college student in Tokyo grew enough pea shoots in his dormitory to feed his entire floor. A family in Melbourne started a microgreen co-op where 6 households shared seeds and rotated harvests, so someone always had fresh greens available. But perhaps the most remarkable part of this story is what happened when those home growers started feeding microgreens to their families. Parents reported that children who previously refused to eat vegetables were happily munching on microgreen pea shoots straight from the tray. There is something profoundly transformative about watching a seed sprout and grow in your kitchen over a week that changes a child's relationship with food. It is no longer something that appears in a plastic bag from a store. It is something alive, something they helped create, something they can eat with their own hands 5 seconds after cutting it. That experience cannot be shipped. Now, let me tell you about the elephant in the room that nobody talks about. One of the primary reasons you rarely hear about microgreens from mainstream nutrition sources is that they fundamentally undermine the supplement industry. Think about it. A 2 8-gram serving of mixed microgreens can deliver more vitamin C than an orange, more vitamin K than a cup of kale, more vitamin E than a handful of almonds, and more beta-carotene than a carrot. All in a small handful of leaves you grew yourself for a few cents. The global dietary supplement industry is worth over $170 billion. These are companies selling you vitamins in capsules, extracted, isolated, and marked up 1,000% from their natural form. A tray of broccoli microgreens on your kitchen counter is a direct competitor to every bottle of vitamin C, every antioxidant blend, and every green superfood powder on the market. No corporation benefits when you grow your own supplements in a takeout container. And here's the kicker. Research increasingly suggests that vitamins consumed in their whole food form, surrounded by the cofactors and companion nutrients that evolved alongside them, are absorbed more effectively than isolated supplements. Your body recognizes food. It does not always recognize pills. A handful of microgreens is not just cheaper than a bottle of vitamins. It may be more effective. Here is what they never wanted you to understand. Nutritional independence does not require land. It does not require vast sums of money. It does not require expertise or permission or a specific growing season. The most nutrient-dense food ever measured by the United States government grows in any container, under any light, in any climate, in any apartment, in any season, in 7 to 14 days, from seeds that cost less than a cup of coffee. The San Francisco chefs who stumbled onto this in the 1980s knew it was special. They just didn't know why. The Johns Hopkins researchers who measured the sulforaphane in the 1990s knew it could fight cancer. They couldn't make the food industry care. The USDA scientists who published those numbers in 2012 gave the world proof that these tiny plants are nutritional powerhouses. The world shrugged. NASA scientists growing them on the space station right now know they are essential for human survival beyond Earth. Microgreens are not a trend. They are not merely a garnish. They are not a fleeting health fad. They are a biological technology that has been waiting on your kitchen counter this entire time. A seed is not just a seed. It is a compressed library of nutritional information. Millions of years of evolution packed into something smaller than a grain of rice, waiting for nothing more than moisture and light to express itself. Every variety you plant is a different volume in that library. Broccoli writes the chapter on cancer prevention. Radish writes the chapter on digestive enzymes. Sunflower writes the chapter on complete protein. Pea shoots write the chapter on vitamin C. You are not farming. You are curating a living pharmacy that renews itself every 10 days. And unlike any pharmacy you have ever visited, this one costs less than a cup of coffee to stock. The seed already knows what to do. It is known for millions of years. It just needs water, a surface, and a little bit of light. 5 minutes to set up, 10 days to harvest, up to 40 times the nutrition. No soil, no sunlight, no permission needed. The only question left is whether you will start. If you found this valuable, watch the next video because it goes even deeper. Do not forget to subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next. See you in the next one.